Deicide didn't make the list, but don't worry, we have even better albums to talk about.
You're a full-on basic bro.
These are my favorite metal albums of April, and we're starting with Benighted with Ekbom. Album 8 for this French death metal crew, highly recommended for fans of Aborted. Love the gang vocals and mathy breakdown on Morgue, and equally fun techie drumming on Fame of the Grotesque. But perhaps best of all, it's great that they got Ollie of Archspire on Nothing Left to Fear. Flesh Against Flesh is another highlight with some seriously fast guitar work, as is the French-language violence of Le Vice d'Entra. Metastasis has some very The Black Dahlia Murder sounding riffing, offset nicely by the unignorable groove of A Reason for Treason and Scapegoat. Another top-notch album, and no less in a year where Aborted also dropped one of their best. Then we have Coffin Curse with the Continuous Nothing. This Chilean band's second album, following up 2020's Cease to Be. Nice emphasis on speed and somewhat blackened sounding guitar tremolos alongside raging D-beats and extremely raucous bass. Crazy intense vocals too, like a demon gurgling and burping his way through the violence. If I can provide a slight critique, I do think that these songs would be much tighter at around 2 minutes shorter, given their pretty straightforward bulldozer approach. Aside from that, if you just want another super heavy modern take on OSDM, you just got it.
Nothing more and nothing less.
Then we have Nuclear Tomb with Labyrinthian Terror. After a decade honing their craft, this Baltimore death thrash crew is dropping their first full-length album in a chaotic technical style that feels like Voivod colliding with Gorguts. Tracks range from what sounds like the weird grinding of rusted machinery to straight thrashers like Parasitic. Pretty brain-melting stuff with a dissonant sound that's definitely not going to be for everyone or even every mood, but that's also the quality that makes it stand out from any other thrash or death album I've heard this year, and I always appreciate bands willing to go their own way. Next up is Antichrist Siege Machine with Vengeance of Eternal Fire. The third album from this Virginia grinding black and death metal band, and as I was sifting through the dozens of albums in my inbox this month, I just needed something fast, hard, and stupidly aggressive, and that's what this album is, put simply. An absolute barrage of blast beats, razor blade blackened snarls, and noisy guitars. From the first seconds of Son of Man to the last of Abyssal Hate, I feel like I've been beaten with multiple Negan bats chained to the back of a truck and dragged face down for 28 minutes straight. It definitely can be a bit on the repetitive side, but I couldn't resist unleashing that same violence on others this month. Then there's Veriteras with the Dark Horizon. The sophomore album from the Seattle, Washington band, maintaining a lot of the more aggressive roots of the genre with the vicious snarling vocals and Gothenburg-style riffs. No clean singing or moodier elements, just epic harmonized guitar leads in a chilly atmosphere that I'd compare to a slightly more upbeat version of Dissection. I do think the vocals could have a little more variety and maybe not be quite so high in the mix, but otherwise it's a damn fine listen. The riffs alone are worth checking out. If you love albums like The Jester Race or Storm of the Light's Bane, definitely give this a spin. Then we have Exist with Hijacking the Zeitgeist. This progressive metal band has been around 14 years, but it's only been in the last few that I started really paying attention. Their sound on this album I would most closely compare to Rivers of Nile, with its profound atmosphere, proggy guitars, and sludgy screams, not to mention some stylistic shifts to keep things interesting. And with members that have played with the likes of Cynic, Obscura, Defeated Sanity, and more, it should be no surprise that these jazz-infused performances are absolutely pristine. Also strongly recommended to fans of Opeth, Ishan, and Gojira. Then we have Necrot with Lifeless Birth. This Oakland, California death metal band formed in 2012 with Lifeless Birth, now their third full-length album. Theirs is another soaked in the old school influences alongside other modern groups like Skeletal Remains and Gatecreeper, never letting up on sheer aggression and bloodthirst. There are the occasional more dynamic moments like the groovy head-bobbing intro of Drill the Skull, but these still bring the violence of Morbid Angel and Cannibal Corpse. No modern twists, no Gothenburg influences, just pure death metal through and through. Then we have Hour of Penance with Devotion. The 9th album from this Italian technical death metal band formed in 1999. Definitely hearing some similar vibes to Hideous Divinity as well as Vitriol in their incredibly fast and dense take on the genre that is impressively performed but sometimes berating to a fault. Giacomo's drumming in particular is absolutely insane. He is like an absolute machine on rippers like Breathe the Dust Out of Their Dead. A few choice picks here: Parasitic Chain of Command, Birthright Abolished, and Breathe the Dust of Their Dead. Then there's Dead Flesh with Dehumanise. Good deathcore has been a little sparse so far this year in my opinion, but add this EP to my short list of heaters. Take dark, modern Whitechapel atmosphere, a little Cabal, and a dash of Archspire syncopated vocals, and you've pretty much got this Hertfordshire band figured out. Nothing flashy, just super heavy deathcore with solid atmosphere in the production, but not in the overwhelming way I see a lot of people jumping on the Lorna Shore train with. It never supersedes delivering on hooks and great grooves to just bang your head to. Then we have Amiensus with Reclamation. I've been following this progressive black metal band's ascent since 2015's appropriately titled Ascension, and with each album they only seem to get better. These days I could draw plenty of comparisons to Enslaved and Ishan, again, in that the music is always progressive first and only heavy when it needs to be. And I'd argue that this choice, along with the incorporation of some gorgeous violin, is what really allows the atmosphere to absolutely soar. There are moments on this album where I feel like I'm levitating into the clouds and all of the bad shit of the week just drifts away. Then we have High on Fire with Cometh the Storm. The return of this legendary Oakland sludge group with Cody Willis of Melvin stepping in on drums. We've still got the usual psychedelic jams like Burning Down, but also some fantastic Middle Eastern sounding moments that feel more ambitious than anything that they've done before. Always nice to hear a band this deep into their career still experimenting and shaking things up, but all the same, they haven't given up on straight bruisers either, like Lightning Beard and the very to-the-point D-beat infused and properly titled The Beating. And once more, Kurt Ballew's production makes the album sound absolutely massive. You can check out my High on Fire tier list to hear my thoughts on all of their albums. Then we have Blaze of Perdition with Upharsin. The much-awaited return of these Polish black metalers with their 6th album and now 20 years under their belt. I got into them with 2015's Near Death Revelations and always look forward to more. Love that lead guitar on Przyreni, and I'm gonna mispronounce all these names. Great mix of something earworm amidst the malevolent groove, infectious backing vocals too, sounding like Vikings rowing a longboat, and a totally ripping solo. Then there's the soaring black hazy parts of Nizmnia smuggled into the still overwhelmingly traditional black metal foundation. Maybe slightly underwhelming considering the long wait, but as far as black metal albums in 2024, it still stood out to me. Then we have In Vain with Solemn. In Vain are a progressive death metal band that formed in Norway in 2003, with this being their 5th album. Honestly, I was really on and off initially including it, as I didn't really find the death metal parts to be that impressive on their own, but every few seconds it manages to surprise me with the surprising melodic turns it takes. There are sections of this record that remind me of everything from Soilwork and Insomnium to Borknagar and Opeth. At times I was even reminded of Coheed and Cambria. Bit of an investment at over an hour, but if you like music that can still actually surprise you, it's definitely worth a spin. Yo, I forgot to say this earlier, but if you're enjoying the video so far, I got plenty more albums to go, but hit the like button, really helps me out, and also comment below your favorite albums of this month. But next up, we have Enter Arma with New Heaven.
Holy shit.
I've been enamored with this Richmond, Virginia band's particularly cavernous brand of sludge since 2016's Paradise Gallows, but they've been kicking around since 2006. Every album has had something a little different to offer, but the name of the game with this one seems to be pure menace that almost reaches the depths of primitive man at times, with only the occasional glimmers of light. The title track has this wonky, disoriented, technical riffing too that on some level also reminds me of things like Ulcerate. But then expect the usual variety, with violent seizures bringing some Middle Eastern sounding energy, with Mike continuing to sound as unhinged as ever, and it only gets weirder and more unpredictable from there. Then for something fun, we have Korpiklanni with Rankarumpu. This is the 12th album from this legendary Finnish folk metal band, originally formed as Shamani Duo back in 1993. Their sound is one with the emphasis very much on the folk part of the genre, leaning into the accordion, violin, and upbeat drumming for an often danceable good time. No harsh vocals either, just some distorted guitar to back this gypsy hoedown, all sung beautifully in the Finnish language too. It may not be much of a headbanger, but not everything has to be. Sometimes I just want to party down at the Ren Fair.
Fireball! Fireball!
Next up is Glassing with From the Other Side of the Mirror. The third album from this Texas trio that I'd at this point recommend to fans of things like Oathbreaker, Alcest, and Death Heaven. But they also have more than a little Converge, LLNN, and even Botch in their more aggressive moments as well. Tortured post-hardcore howls are contrasted against drifty, contemplative post-metal soundscapes as well as the more bright shoegazy moments. Glassing so seamlessly traverse both grim darkness and ethereal light in a truly breathtaking manner. Then we have Vulture with Sentinels. Vulture is a German band that's been around since 2015. This is their fourth album, and especially with the vocals, I could compare their sound most maybe to Exodus. Regardless of where you put them on the spectrum, though, there is no denying the sheer speed and energy of these songs. I was headbanging like crazy mere seconds into opening track Screams from the Abattoir, and the guitar hooks continue to flow like wine from that point forward. Great retro production too, with heavy use of reverb. So many great songs packed into just over 40 minutes. Thrash has not been quite as strong this year as last year in my opinion, but this one may end up being at the top tier for me come December. Then we have Seeyouspacecowboy with Coup de Grâce. I'll be a metalcore defender to the day I die, but I gotta say, so far, it's been an even shittier year for this genre. But in the midst of all of these bland, rinse-and-repeat gent clones, this California band does not disappoint, once more mixing mathcore and emo music as if they time-traveled here straight from the 2000s. This takes me back to days listening to everything from Under Oath and the number 12 Looks Like You to The Used and Taking Back Sunday. I don't think I like this one quite as much as The Romance of Affliction, but rarely is a band so able to fully capture the essence of a decade long since past. Then we have Neck of the Woods with Luxury Trap. The latest EP from this highly underrated Canadian band who really blew me away with 2020's The Annex of Ire. This is one of those bands I tend to recommend as a metalcore gateway to people who don't generally like the genre, as I'd honestly say they have just as much to do with the likes of Rivers of Nile as August Burns Red. Back into the fray, despite what we know. And with their often aggressive leanings and emphasis on progressive elements, I could see a broad variety of fan bases getting invested in this, from Gojira to Tesseract. Killer guitar work and highly textured, very well-paced songwriting make this a very strong 20-minute listen. Couple of honorable mentions here, since I know people are going to bitch about them in the comments. No, My Dying Bride, I'm just not a big Doom guy. I tried again, I always try with them, but I just couldn't get into it. Dark Throne, I have a love-hate relationship with. I tend to enjoy their albums, but they're rarely like my favorites of the month. Like I said, Deicide did not make the list. You can check out my tier list I did to talk about all of those albums and where it ranked there. And there were probably some other bigger releases that got mentioned a lot that I'm not thinking of right now, but my favorite metal album of this month goes to Full of Hell with Coagulated Bliss. I've always found myself looking forward to new releases from this eclectic US grindcore band, but they have yet to top the explosive power of 2017's Trumpeting Ecstasy for me. Until now. This new record takes most of the elements I loved about that album, really keeps the energy going, and throws in its own twists and turns like a title track I'd describe as a more extreme take on Every Time I Die. Once more, killer dynamics with songs that range from grind and noise to doom and ambient, but importantly paced out to perfection for a deeply engaging experience. In just 26 minutes, this band managed to deliver something that's somehow both the heaviest and most interesting thing I've heard this month. Y'all check out this playlist for more Best of the Year videos, or since Deicide didn't make the list, if you want to hear my thoughts on it again, you can check out the discography ranking right here. Please do subscribe if you're new here too. I put out videos like this pretty much twice a week at this point, sometimes more, but that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I will see you in the trenches.